Okay, guys, today we're going to be getting into Chapter 6. So if you've got your text, I suggest that you turn with me because there's a couple of things that I do want to go over that I think are important in this chapter. I want to just mention first off what the purpose of jails are. The purpose of jail, actually there's two of them, is really to hold pretrial detainees and sentence misdemeanors. Now, when we talk about pretrial detainees, these are individuals who are under some type of bond or bail, as we call it, that are awaiting trial. Sentence misdemeanors simply means that these are individuals who, in the state of North Carolina, have typically been sentenced up to 1 year in a facility. And so both of those are held here. Now, I want to go over to some of the characteristics of some of the inmates that we find in here. And I'm looking in your book where it's got the jail inmates section. And this is on page 176. And it talks about the characteristics of jail inmates. And what you're going to see is it's very similar to what is in the prison system. If you look on your chart there, you'll actually see that for jails, and this is a difference here, jails, remember, hold pretrial detainees. About 60% of the people that are in jails have not been sentenced yet. But look at some of the other statistics. Just like in the prison system, a majority of inmates here are going to be male. Most of them are in for non-violent offenses such as drug offenses, larcenies, thefts, and what we call public order, which are typically your drunken disruptive types of offenses. Most of them, while a majority are white, we've still got an overrepresentation of minorities that are here, and there are a small amount of juveniles that are held in these facilities as well. But look on the opposite page there, and there's a couple of interesting statistics. You'll see here that about 80% have earned less than $2,000 per month. A majority of people coming into jails have some type of mental health issue, substance abuse issue. This is something that's also interesting when we look at females. A majority of them have been sexually abused at some point in time in their life or physically abused. Many of them have grown up with only one parent, or some of them have grown up being raised by grandparents or in foster situations. 44% have a high school diploma or less. 39% have chronic medical conditions, dental problems. Some were even homeless. So if you're getting the picture here, the type of person we're getting coming into jail is really minority, male, poor, unhealthy, uneducated, very mentally ill, distressed, or have drug problems. And these are the people that we're getting in here. Now, I want to also show you something else that's interesting about females. Females present a very interesting problem for the jail and prison system. And here's what it comes down to. Women comprise a very small minority of individuals who are being incarcerated, only about 12 to 13%. But with that comes specific problems. And I'm looking over here in the part of the chapter where it talks about gender and populations, and some of the statistics are very interesting there. When we start looking at women, the typical female inmate is poor, a high school dropout, has low job skills, and has held many low wage jobs. But some of the other things that we're seeing here, about 2/3 of women who are coming into the jails are mothers with children who are under the age of 18, and these children were living with them prior to becoming incarcerated. There's also some research that about 25% of all women who come into jails have just given birth recently before their entry. So if you know much about developmental psychology as it applies to children, one of the questions we ask is, what are going to be the ramifications of mothers and fathers going to jail on these kids later on? If we're having these mothers that are coming into jail and having kids that are on the outside and the mothers were the primary caretaker, what about the children? But like I said, with females, we often see a high number of them who have some type of mental illness and who have drug abuse, and we're also seeing a large number of them that actually have some type of sexual abuse in their history as well. With the jails, and I'm looking here on the portion about suicide, we also see that a high number of people who come into jails commit suicide. Research says it's typically going to be about the first 48 to 72 hours after admission is going to be when a person most likely commits suicide. Why is that? Well, if they're coming into jails intoxicated with drug abuse and mental illness, they may be coming down off those drugs. They may have taken depressants and things like that. They get those feelings of worthlessness, and that can cause them in those few hours to have those suicidal tendencies and thoughts there. But notice what it says. Suicide is the leading cause of death, inmate death in jails is actually going to be suicide. Combined with this, the very poor training that we give jail officers. In the state of North Carolina, it only takes 160 hours of training to become a jailer in this state. But also with that, we add in some other problems. Jails don't provide much medical training or medical help. They provide very little vocational training. And part of the reason for that is because people come into jails and they stay there such a short period of time. But it's also very costly. And by the way, in the state of North Carolina, every county has to have a jail. Some counties, like Guilford County, have more than one. This is the reason your book calls jails the way station to the justice system. A way station is simply a stopping point, but it's a point that everybody typically has to go through. Those are some of the things we're going to look at in this chapter. If you've got any questions, please post them on the Q&A forum, or feel free to email me or contact me through Big Blue Button.